Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my patch 9.22 patch note rundown. I'm a little bit late. I meant to start this a little bit earlier, but I had to quickly win a game. So, I don't really know what I'm going to talk too much about this patch note, or I don't know what I'm really going to talk about in this patch note rundown. Usually I talk about the current meta, but I guess talking about the current meta into talking about a new set, we're pretty much going into a new season. And so this is Teamfight Tactics' first new season with an entirely new cast. So I think breaking it down like a normal patch note rundown is kind of weird. I'm probably not going to cover the synergies on a baseline level. I'm going to quickly go through a lot of stuff, okay? Okay. So they didn't go over the general stuff. So first of all, we'll then talk about set 1, and then we'll talk about set 2 in terms of expectations. So set 1, I think they did a lot of things from set 1 where they just kind of took it from the auto chest. They're just like, well, this group did it successfully. We're just going to copy a lot of synergies from here, and then we'll expand later in their set 2. And there are a lot of really big problematic stuff about set 1. A large part of the problematic stuff was not only RNG based, stuff like Hex Tech, stuff like Phantom, but also it was problematic in the sense that there were a lot of immunities or very, very high reductions that are pretty much immunities. Dragon's Claw and Dragon pretty much became the meta for 4 weeks, or probably 6 weeks, which makes ranked really, really, really frustrating to play. On top of the fact that it really did feel like they kind of gave up on set 1 at the very end and put all their eggs into set 2. So set 1 is, Set 1 is the stuff where I feel like, they dabbled their fingers into the genre, whatever, and set 2 is really their time to flex. So what did set 1 do that was really problematic? I think they learned that immunities and just high MR reduction just sucked. Like, it's just really, really bad. And they're going to throw that in the gutter. They learned that RNG should be more like Imperial, where it's random but on your unit, as opposed to Phantom, which is random on their unit, or Hextech, which is random on their unit. Because it feels a lot worse to play against, and it feels a lot better. Like, it feels okay if you miss an Imperial, but if you get hit with a Phantom, you feel like shit. And so that kind of feeling, I do believe that feeling made a lot of casual players want to quit the game. One of the biggest things I do have to say about the set is that one of the things that became really obvious, and one of the biggest problems that TFT has in general, is the idea that the game itself isn't fun to play with friends. There isn't really an encouraging reason to play with friends. You're pretty much playing in your own zone. And then you meet your friends who you're playing with, like, when the carousel happens. So, like, once every round, you'll meet your friend. Hey, what's up, guys? Oh, no, you took my item. And then next stage. What ends up happening is you meet them again. And so it really felt like very disconnected. Like, you're in a situation where you're pretty much not playing with other people. Part of the thing that they I guess that's my biggest complaints with the set. I'm not gonna go harp on like the fact that like dragons are just disgustingly broken, or like in the end that like pretty much nothing was playable that wasn't dragons, or to some extent like Jinx brawlers, stuff like that. I think those were mainly the major like pictures that they learned was like, okay, we want good RNG that is not frustrating to play against, and we want immunities and kind of large damage things to be taken away from. I also think you want people to have to make more decisions in terms of like optimizing and min-maxing their board a lot more. That's something that doesn't really happen as much, but something that you should be thinking about like nonstop, where I feel like a lot of the times right now, it's very like cut and dry. And finally, the last thing is it's really difficult to tech in counters for synergies. Like, the only synergistic counter in the game is if someone goes Yordles, you can go wild and you can beat them up. But in Dota Auto Chess, there was the idea of teching in like magic resistance, and then maybe like you can have something that techs in like physical armor or something. Having set built like units you can tech in that aren't just items that are random that you get every game is really, really nice. It's something that I encourage more of. Anyways, we'll go on to this. We've talked enough about this. So greetings, tacticians. By the way, I actually met Birnana, but I met the guy. He says he watches all my patch note rundowns. By the way, I met him, and I met the girl who did the Summoner's Rift patch note, the League of Legends one. It was really funny actually. I met them both at dinner. Yeah. It's really weird putting like the people to the the text. So sometimes if there's like really cringe stuff in here, I know immediately who to blame. Anyways, the elements are here and they are rising. Shit. All right, well, we're off to a good start. The all new elemental hex. They misspelled elemental. Bro, come on. We're not even 2 lines into the patch note rundown. Okay, elemental hex system. New champions, origins, classes, and abilities are shaking up the convergence. This new set also brings a new rank system to Teamfight tactics. Study up and get ready to climb on patch 9.23. Last but not least, we've decreased the number of champions in each pool, making each force compositions more difficult and opening more paths to victory. I think this last thing is definitely really an interesting choice by them. Especially right now, like you'll see like 4 people go Sorks. And I don't think that's very nice. I think like kind of lowering the pool allows you to have each people have different compositions near the end of the game. Now, keep in mind, this only works if the top tier comps don't completely overpower the other comps. So if we did this on live, then the guy who got like the Jinx Brawlers or the guy who got like the Yordle Dragon Sorks like gets to just win the game for free because those tend to hard counter everything else on the board. But I think the general idea and theory makes a lot of sense. I do encourage this kind of stuff. I think it makes scouting more important, as well as just in general, I like seeing more different compositions. Let's keep going. We're not going to talk and explore the specific origins classes or the beta set. General game changes. Okay. So we made a few systematic changes in preparation for Rise of the Elements. The board side change will allow for additional options and additions to make optimal formation for any given situation. Many of the other changes account for champions and synergies in the new set. Okay, the board side increase, phenomenal. If there was no other thing, all the text here disappeared, going down from board side, I would say, good job. Really good play. The extra board size just makes the game feel better, at least from a somewhat higher level of play. I always thought that positioning was kind of a way you could express your skill in the game. And skill expression is something that is kind of difficult when you're playing an RNG game like this. Hopefully the idea of reducing the champion pool, forcing people to be a lot more flexible and do different comps, as well as increasing the board size allow you to be able to really like, I don't know, express your skill against opponents that you may be better than, or get shit on by opponents who are better than you at both. A good example of like good positioning is like, essentially, if you ever wanted to run Rangers in the first set, positioning was a really, really big requirement of Rangers. Something that like people didn't really understand if they didn't see a lot of the top players play. Like the idea of how to play Rangers or like how to like position Rangers was kind of a very specific nuance. Me particularly could never get top 2 with Rangers. I could only get like top 4, but I would see constant better Ranger players be able to position like really, really well against the field. And that was really one of the only synergies that positioning was a big deal. Now with the new board size, you can do all kinds of different things. For instance, you can kind of do like, if you're against assassins, you can reverse your comp completely into like a backwards triangle, which is more difficult on a very, very small board. You can choose more areas to kind of hide against and spread out a lot more against bigger AoE. Sedge isn't in this patch and neither is Gnar, but champions like Malphite, for instance, are like AoE initiators you can spread out against. Anyways, moving on. Board size, great. Player damage. So it's obvious that the player damage is too high, especially in the first, like, I would say it's too high early, right? And so what they ended up doing it was they lowered the damage early and increased it late. So on live, you're like literally, if you're losing the first stage, like stage 2, you're probably going to be ending like 60 something life at the carousel. And you have to, because like econing at that point in the game is so important. So being able to take a little bit less damage adjustments are going to be like very, very difficult to pinpoint. I would say this is definitely a right move in the right direction. It just sucks that live is still on this really hyper early game aggressive player damage, which sucks. Summon units don't deal player damage by themselves, but count as if their summoner is alive if at least one of them survives. I think this is really nice. It's very frustrating for people to play against stuff like Elise. You're playing against Elise and all of a sudden like Elise and the 2 Spiderlings end up hitting you for a stupid amount of damage, and you complain, especially if Elise is a really meta champion. I think this is kind of an eloquent way of doing summoners or summon units, and in this patch, there's a lot of summon units. Level 8 drop chances per tier. In the decreasing the amount of drop chance at level 8 to 6, I think this makes a lot of sense because they buffed it to 8% at level 5, and it was pretty ridiculously frustrating because the difference between rolling at 7 and 8 was the difference between 2 to 8%, which meant that it cost 4 times as much. And in metas where 5 costs are like all that matters, it's very frustrating to play metas where essentially if you're not level 8, you just can't hit it. I think going down to 6% is probably better for the game, in my opinion. But hard to say, honestly, because the new set is completely different than the current set. In the current set, there's a lot of 5 cost units, a ton. And the new set, there's a lot less, I think. And so you'd naturally be able to hit the one that you want easier anyways. Once you pick up a champion from a character, your little legend will no longer collide with your opponents. Okay, I know a lot of people complained about, like, blocking. This was kind of very, 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 very low on my importance scale. Like, I didn't even think it mattered. I still don't even think it matters. But, if people don't like it, whatever. I can live with that. It's not a big deal. Rank changes. New season, new rules. Ranked is often in patch 9.22 and return with patch 9.23, which means there will be 2 weeks of no patches starting tomorrow. Something to keep in mind. 2 weeks of no ranked starting tomorrow. I'm probably going to spend this time playing Summoner's Rift because I really enjoy ranked, and playing without ranked is kind of boring. But it's something to keep in mind when the patch comes out. You should probably take this time to learn the new set before ranked really gets unleashed. In the future, I would hope that they turn off ranked for 1 week as opposed to 2, because I think 2 for me, this is entirely selfish, by the way. 2 for me is just a long ass time. Placing 4th or better will never detect LP. Placing 5th or lower will never reward LP. The thing about this is, I don't know if this is even a good thing. It feels good to not lose at 4th, but it doesn't. I don't know if it still decreases MMR or not. There's a chance that you could get +0, so you'll never deduct LP. You can get +0 and lose MMR, which is worse than, or like, I don't know. It could be worse than people expect, and this is talking only from a very high elo standpoint. So this in general feels better overall, but behind the scenes it may not make that much of a difference. We're slightly decreased the number of Challenger Grandmaster spots in many regions in order to make sure that Master of Challenger ranks have the appropriate distribution of players. Okay. Korea, Vietnam has 300, 700. NA West, EU West and NA have 200, 500. EU East has 50 and 100? Holy shit. Okay, so the amount of challengers goes down by 100, and the GMs go down by quite a bit as well in NA, which means it'll be a lot harder to hit challenger next season. You get a third of the slots. Interesting. But yeah, EU East gets 50 challenger slots. That's kind of interesting. Champion pool changes. We're decreasing the amount of champions in each pool. Will be much more difficult for multiple players to build similar teams. Keep an eye on where your opponents are building and find open synergies for maximum success. Cool. So they decreased the tier 1 by 39 to 29, which is significant. Tier 2 by 26 to 22. Tier 3 by 18 to 16. Tier 4 by 13 to 12. No change on tier 5. So as you're going up, the biggest significant changes probably tier 1 means hyper rolling is a lot weaker, especially if other people have your units. You really have to scout out to see if you're gonna hyper roll right before level 5. And you also will get less chance of, like, I guess, rolling garbage, rolling into 1 tiers as well, because there's just less units to roll. It's really, really interesting. Like I said before, the theory of this champion pool change is the idea that more people will try more comps, and it will be really rewarding to scout. It should technically separate the better players from the worst players. It unfortunately is a thing that only works in theory best, but if certain compositions are way better, it could be a worse change. Generally speaking, we'll probably need a couple of weeks on live, or maybe a week or 2 on live, to see really how bad or how good this change is. I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess. Mana generation. So mana generation went up, or I guess in general went up, averaged out on 1-star champions. Stayed the same for 2-star, and at 3-star you got more mana per attack, which is nice, I think. A little bit more reward for 3-star. Mana generated from taking damage reduced by 15%. I think this is a big deal. It pretty much means that if you're frontlining like your tank, they will go off 15% slower. So stuff like Sejuani goes off 15% slower. Sorry, she's not in the set anymore. Malphite will go off 15% slower. This is kind of looked down upon, but I think this is actually nice. I think it lowers the amount of, I don't know, I think taking damage is and the stuff was going off maybe too quickly, and I kind of agree with the mana generation going lower. Recipe changes. Curse Blade has been removed. Problematic item that I'm glad they removed. Thank you. Negatron Cloak and Recurve goes to Hurricane, normal item. Let's ignore all this. This is just the spatula stuff for the new Cinder. All spatula stuff items no longer give double stats. I think this is good. The idea of giving double stats, I think doubly rewarded spatula stuff when it should be you already get a benefit for getting like a spatula thing. Like if you get a spatula assassin, you also getting double 80 for that felt like you're getting twice the reward. And realistically, like getting an extra assassin or getting an extra knight or getting an extra sorcerer or whatever always felt really great in the first place. And like the idea of having a more versatile comp should be reward enough. It also felt really weird when Darken, which was Demon, was just better than Seraphs or mana regeneration items. I don't think that should necessarily ever be the case. They ended up buffing Chain Vest base. I think that's good. Chain Vest generally is one of the weakest items. Death Cap AP went up. Now, the reason this went up is because, remember, Sorcerers only double cast on the new set. Or I guess they're mages, right? Mages double cast on the new sets. There's no more increased AP for Sorcerers on the new set, so they had to buff Death Cap just because. It's probably about even. Overall better on non-mage comps, which is cool, you know. Dragon's Claw damage went down. Oh god, this is the biggest thing. Dragon's Claw went down from 75 to 50%. So Dragon's Claw used to be like 83%, and it went down to 75, and then they didn't touch it for a long time, much to my frustration. And now on set 2, finally they realize, you know, high reduction, which essentially is immunity, is a big problem. So Dragon is removed from the set, thank God. And Dragon's Claw got reduced to 50%, which, by the way, means Dragon's Claw is still a strong item. And if it's a weak at 50%, I'm sure they can tune it up back to like 60, 55. But like, I'd rather they go a little bit farther than anything else. Dragon Slayer, which is super OP, by the way, on live, went to current health physical damage, which means it's counterable by armor, which is really, really interesting. It means Chain Vest has a little bit more value, BF has a little bit less value. Overall, it's a pretty big nerf, unless you're running the Desert Armor Pen synergy, which is interesting. It means like you can think about maybe the value of certain items be better with certain synergies, right? GA goes down 100 health again. GA is one of the best items on live. 100 health was still making one of the best items. It's a semi-decent hit, but it's still going to be very good. Hand of Justice went up to 50% damage and 50 life on hit. This item's already really good. I'm surprised they ended up buffing it. It's already a very strong item. It's really generally used for like fast attack speed units like Kaisa, or it's decent on Rangers, okay on stuff like Draven, but in general, to use both parts, like, you know, I think Rangers would do really, really well with this, and I'm surprised they ended up buffing it. Yeah, it's better than I thought. Ionic Tree damage actually got nerfed, which is surprising. I think it was borderline good, and right now it's probably going to be weak for a little bit. They might need to buff it up in the future, but we'll see. Luden's Echo damage went down, but they'll always go off once per spell cast, which means there's no longer any... Okay, there is on live, there is a 2-second window where Ludens can't go off. It's like 1.5 seconds. You'll see this if you put Seraphs on Yasuo and then or Akali and then try to put Ludens. Sometimes you just don't get the Ludens proc, which feels bad. So Ludens always going off. This is probably a nerf in most situations, but a buff in situations on units where you can find Seraphs and Ludens at the same time, which is going to be a difficult thing. This is definitely kind of interesting though. Stuff like Kindred, stuff like Kog'Maw with Ludens are certainly going to feel fairly powerful, especially with Ludens plus Seraphs. Negatron went up on base. Recurve went down. Recurve is a hard item to balance because attack speed is the only stat that gives you more mana the faster you attack. Hurricane bonus went down and only grants 1 extra bolt per copy. They nerfed it because it's no longer a spatula item. Makes sense. Thief's Glove got buffed. I don't really understand this. I think Thief's Glove is a pretty good item in the first place. Generally speaking, the things I like to see the most were just these two. These three, and actually, the third one isn't as relevant, but the idea is on live, BF sword value is very, very high. You want to try to make the item value relatively close, even if there are going to be ones that are better than other ones. You want to make sure that it's close. And on live, like BF value is like stupidly high. Like everyone wants BF. So nerfing Giant Slayer as well as nerfing GA makes it so like maybe BF won't be as contested as much. And I like that. Moving on. Uncommon orbs average gold slightly reduced very slightly. Gold orbs value reduced very slightly. Spatula drop rate reduced. I don't know what any of this means, by the way, because I don't get any percentages. Very slightly could be 5%, 1%, 9%. Probably not 9%. It's like 5%. Spatula drop rate reduced could be like 50%. Could be like 20. But it's interesting. Reduce the chance of getting combined items. But slightly. Like, I don't know what that means. Like, what's the difference between slightly and very slightly? Like, when I got a combined BT on live when I was going mages yesterday, and I was just like, oh my god, I am in trouble. I understand the idea of getting combined items. Like, Riot wants people to be able to use multiple items, and getting a random item is like, oh, this is cool, you know? I'm gonna get a random item, and I'm gonna build a comp around this random item that I usually wouldn't use. But in reality, what ends up happening when items are really unbalanced, like on live, is you're just throwing away 2 items you would have rather spent component pieces on something else. So yeah, combined items gets a no from me. Maybe if getting a full combined item means it's worth like 1.5 components, and you get some kind of like added benefit as well, I think that maybe it's okay. But it probably needs to be kind of like that for combined items to be good. Full item equal 1 component. Really? It's not 2? I had no idea. Okay, well, that's actually interesting. All right, you know what? Combined items are broken. Never mind. But sometimes I still hate combined items. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes the components are just better. But if combined items are just 2, sorry. There's an official Riot confirmation in chat that it's just 1 item. That's really interesting. 1 component. Okay. Dragons now drop 2 common orbs additionally to carried items. Usually this ends up being gold, but I think that's cool. Elder Dragon and Rift Herald also drop a common uncommon orb additional to carried items. This is cool. So what ends up happening is a lot of times people just hard commit all their items after stage 5. Because you can't get another incomplete component, or you can't get another component, but now you can potentially. So it's something at least that's kind of cool to keep in mind. It's not bad. Yeah, this entire thing I don't really know. I don't mind. I don't know the percentages, so it really doesn't mean anything to me. Generally speaking, I think I like less gold value because I think sometimes gold openers feel very, very strong. Still, and generally speaking, I feel like as people get more used to this set, the value of gold becomes better because you know exactly what units you want to save and what you don't. At the very beginning of the set, I feel like items are really, really good, and items are good in late game as well, or late into the set as well. But just in general, I think the value of gold becomes more and more apparent as the set people become more experienced. Anyways, let's keep going. Champions that contribute to trade without their portrait and tier information inside the tooltip. Champions that are active on the battlefield without their portraits highlighted. This is great, by the way. Any kind of the UI stuff is the stuff that like will keep people playing, keep people interested. And it's really, really nice when you don't memorize it, but you can mouse over it. Super, super good. There's Freljord and Arena skins. Cool. That's just more stuff. I mean, I'm kind of hoping for like I don't know. We'll wait for the Ionian skin. I like Ionia a lot. So, but I know on PBE, Freljord skin was really bugged to where at 1-1 your unit wouldn't attack and it would just lose automatically. So I never really got to test arena skins a lot, but I'm sure they fixed that and they look kind of cool. Bug fixing, but red buff and Morello tooltips are now wrong. Or now correct, sorry. Fix a bug where tier 3-star units are doing 1 more player damage than intended. I didn't even realize this was a thing. Mainly because tier 3 units were really, really rare in the first place. Oh, hey, what's up, Danny? Alright, guys. This kind of concludes everything. I think they did a really good job, especially with the board size, the reduced player damage. I like the level 8 champion stuff, the summon units, all this stuff. I'm really excited for the new set. Overall, live set kind of sucks.